Welcome to SweetStreams. On this episode, real-time insights that unify streaming and historical data that run on a fully open-source core. Sounds like the dream, right? Today we're hosting a very special guest, Jove Zong, co-founder of Timeplus. Jove will give us a sneak peek into what Timeplus is working on, how it fits into the streaming ecosystem, and what the amazing open-source community around Proton is doing, from innovative solutions to weird edge cases. I'm your host, Kato Schur, and let's welcome Jove Zong. Today, I have with me Jove Zong, co-founder of Timeplus. How are you doing today, Jove?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so
Yeah,
glad to join this podcast.
excellent. I'm really excited too. So it seems like you have a really strong history in stream processing, especially with us Pulsar folks. And I was wondering if you might want to just jump in and share a little bit about how you got started.
Yeah, so I've been working on this search slash data or big data or live data processing for a long time. For example, when I was in EMC, like a long time ago, I was working on enterprise search. Then I spent 7 years and a half in a company called Splunk. In that company, I work on a lot of data aggregation and transformation. And the last 2 years in Splunk, I actually work on a product called the data streaming processor. So that's really a
Nice.
product really focusing on the streaming side. And the recent 2, 3 years, we work on the company called Timeplus and also open source at the core engine at Proton.
Can you explain a little bit like what is Timeplus? Like, what does it do? Maybe what challenges it solves?
Yeah, of course. So Timeplus, as the name implies, we really focus on the time. Essentially, we are building a data analytics platform, or for some people, it is a database. But we really put the time as our first citizen. So everything is time related. Every single table, we don't call table, we call stream, data stream. And every event in the stream, there's always a column called TP time, which is time plus time. So we really use time to efficiently save the data, to query data, to apply stuff like watermark. So all those are fancy and boring features. Everything is related to time. So in the end, we build more like a next-gen system to have the time as the first system and can allow developers to get most value from the real-time data. And Proton is our core engine, and we open source it 4-5 months ago under Apache license 2. So the idea that is everyone, no matter they want to use Timeplus call or using our Timeplus on-prem version, they can actually try this without counting us, just using the open source Proton version, using single image, using Docker Compose. So they can try without counting us. This is really give them an alternative to other tools such as, say, Apache Flink or KFuelDB. Those are nice tools, but the learning curve can be something you might want to avoid, and the lightweight to Proton can be an option for them.
Gotcha. That's awesome. So I didn't realize. So Proton is completely open source now?
Yes, yeah, and that is we cannot build something by ourselves, and we really need to get a lot of inputs or the feedback or even contribution from all the data engineers, platform engineers. So when we choose the open source license, we do struggle a little bit because there's so many options, different series.
Yeah.
But in the end, we say, yeah, just go to the simple one. Apache V2 is most common and the popular license. And it is true that is people might able to modify it, even distribute it, even host it. But yeah, I guess that's the most transparent way to give back to the community and get feedbacks.
Nice. Well, congratulations. You said it really recently, right? That was about like fall
Uh,
2023.
yeah, I think right before a teleconference. So it's end of September, I think, last year.
Nice. And so do you have a Time Plus platform you said that Proton is kind of the core engine. So what's that relationship like?
Yeah, so Proton is the streaming SQL engine, right? So you can run streaming SQLs or even you can run batch SQLs, and it can help you to process the live data. It allow you to put some data in the historical storage or do some unified computation or aggregations or downsampling, things like that. But it's essentially it's a SQL engine, right? So for our Time Plus, the conversion offering, we add extra like UIs and multi-talent, advanced clustering, security, SOC 2, all those things. And we offer both as a managed cloud service or fully on-prem or BY own cloud or BY own cluster version, because some of our clients, they really appreciate our super fast, very efficient, low latency, and they have some concern to send the data to the cloud and query it because they are asking like single-digit millisecond. For such low latency requirements, they prefer everything on-prem, even in the same rack, side by side with their edge data set stores.
Wow, that is very impressive. So it sounds like you have a really good option for cloud and on-prem. Is it used more for one versus the other? Or like, what's like a typical use case that you'd have for both of those?
So again, the company has been there for more than 2 years. We actually offer our cloud version first. Then recently we introducing this open source version, and more and more customer apply our on-prem version even. So it really depends on the use case scenario, the comfortable zone for the users, right? For example, we get a lot of customer on the Web3
Yeah.
slash fintech era.
Yes.
This Bitcoin or the cyber currency, they get really the price upside down and people really see some
Yeah.
utility to earn some money. And all the data, for example, all the transaction, the price is already in the cloud. So those entrepreneurs who really want to build something new on Web3 space, they are really open to have a managed service. As long as they can subscribe to, for example, Coinbase or some other WebSocket-based data source in the cloud, they can acquire the latest data and they can apply some transformation, or they can detect some buy or sell signal and trigger them to do the decision manually. They are good. So they are more comfortable using our cloud service. And we also have the chance to work with a few more like traditional fintech companies, and they have very strong security methods. So in that case, they don't really want to send any data to the cloud. Even they cannot send any sample data to us. So whatever they install is within that data center, but they're using Timeplus to do either post-trading analysis or some preparation so that they can build sophisticated trading algorithm. Right? For example, what's the moving average? Those are simple ones, but all those backfill or those need some kind of magic on the machine learning side. So Timeplus fit well into the entire portfolio, and we don't have to cover everything, but if we can help them to efficiently process the raw data and put them into the format that is more suitable for their algorithm engineer to build a trading algorithm, that would be great. Or they can using us not directly on the trading, but have some metrics to measure whether the algorithm is performed well. But even that still require sub-second latency. So Timeplus is good fit in that
Yeah.
case.
Wow, that is really cool. So it sounds like a lot of these companies, a lot of the use cases could sound the same on paper, but have very specific needs. I like how you put it that Timeplus really fits well with both of these. So you can have someone who needs that super, super low latency and they want that ultra security. So they're going to go with on-prem. And then you have the people who may kind of have the same use case on paper, but because they already have everything in the cloud, you have the options for all of that. So it seems very customizable. Is it easy to kind of go between the two? Like if you've got a company that's like, hey, we really need the security on-prem, but you know what? Maybe we're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with the cloud. Is that an easy enough migration?
Yeah, I think that part largely is inspired by our experience at Sprout, right? So not just me, our CEO, architect, many of us in Timeplus, we spent a lot of time in Splunk. And I think we're really impressed for the ease of use of Splunk. For example, you don't have to be a data engineer, even you just be IT person, you can use Splunk and install it and get the kind of IT alert or some security alerts in the afternoon without learning anything. All the dashboards there, all the apps there, alerted there. And also Splunk is very easy to install. You can have a single version, you have a cluster, you can have the on-prem version, you have a cloud version, or something in between. So I think as a company, we really influenced a lot by the model of Splunk. So for example, Proton is our single binary engine. It's just like a few hundred megabytes. That's more. But if you're happy with this as a local setup, you can easily create a cluster or use our cloud version as a multi-tenant worry-free system. And some people don't really care too much regarding, hey, I have to get the sub-second latency. They might be okay for like a few seconds, a few minutes, but they can still using us as a system. So the spectrum is quite wide. I know as a company, especially in the early stage, we don't really have to like put our battlefield too wide, but because we're really focusing on how to make the data easily can be consumed by the engineer, whether it's a super low latency or it's more about ease of use. So we cover that very well. But in the same time, we put a lot of effort to put Timeplus or Proton into the entire ecosystem, no matter you call it the modern data stack or whatever that is. But we have nice integration with stuff like Metabase, Grafana, DBT, because people don't want to give up whatever they already learned. They want to leverage their existing tools, but using Timeplus or Proton as the magic source to make things faster.
Yeah, I love that. For me, that's such a passion of mine is being able to play nice with everyone in the group, everyone in the ecosystem. Being able to leverage that, I think, makes it so much more powerful too, especially as a developer. Because as you said, people are like, oh, I already have this. I don't want to have to completely switch over. So on that note, what is the development experience like? Is it dependent on a lot of things? If you're just getting started, what's the typical startup process there?
Yeah, so we put a lot of effort on that, even almost at day one or the first week of our company. So that's never changed for the past 2-3 years. So Proton is always very easy to set up, as simple as you just download that file. I guess right now it might be 400 megabytes. Even we can try to trim this down a little bit. So you download the file and you start using Proton server start, and that's it. You don't need any PVM, you don't need Kafka, Zookeeper, da da da. You don't need nothing. It's just a common Linux or Mac. That's all you need. Then you can using the same binary as a client, or you're using stuff like DBC, DBViewer, all those things to connect to it. And we even try to make this very easy to use. So you can, using Proton to connect to your Pulsar, you can connect to your Kafka, but in the same time, we provide other stuff like we have a stream called random stream. You can just create a random string, you put your column name, and you set what's the EPS I want to get. Say I want to get 1 million EPS per second. You can just set as a setting. Then you can query it. You will see 1 million events per second on your registry. So you don't really need to prepare stuff like Kafka at all. It's just really important to get hands dirty. But if you already have your Kafka, your Pulsar, even your log file, you can connect to the response easily too.
That is
And
really
everything
cool.
is SQL based, so you don't have to learn any API, even REST API.
That was my next question. I was like, yeah, it's SQL based, so it sounds like it's pretty language agnostic. It seems like you can just kind of plug it in almost anywhere, right? Like,
Yeah, I would say SQL. I know some company try to say English is a new SDK, but it may take some time, and sometimes you even have to be very verbose on describe using English. But SQL is already there for a long time. Even there's some difference between different databases, but in general, it's a very nice way to abstract how you want to query it or what kind of stuff you want to get, no matter how the database will optimize it. But you describe how I want to connect these two tables, how they're mapping together, what's the result I want to get, and you just express in SQL. And what we add as a streaming SQL is some extra semantics. For example, how to describe a watermark, how to define session window, stuff like that. But there's, I think, a common language in this space. For example, we share a similar language with Flink. So people coming from Flink background, people coming from SQLDB, they should be very comfortable to use us on the day one.
nice. Yeah, that was actually my next question because I've had experience with that as well, where you have a streaming SQL engine, and knowing SQL is going to help. That's going to be most of what you need. But then, of course, there's concepts that are going to be different from if you're not doing streaming. So if you're new to streaming, then it's not just SQL anymore. But it sounds like you said it's almost an exact overlap. It sounds like with Flink SQL or any of the other SQL streaming engines.
Yeah,
Like
and we even go to the extra mile because when we design our system, we do have the choice to build everything by ourselves from scratch. Meaning that is we build all the SQL function by ourselves. We have our own data format. And it's more like a choice that is, in the end, we decided to base on ClearHouse as our SQL function base, as well as some historical data processing, which is very nice idea. For example, I guess there might be 2,000 or 3,000 functions in ClearHouse, right? And the ClearHouse as a full database is very efficient. If you check the website saying that you can query billions of rows in milliseconds, and that's true. You can verify it because they have very efficient column-based storage. So Proton actually leverage ClearHouse as the base for that SQL functions, for that storage, but we add our own streaming query engine and a few other functions for the streaming part. But people already familiar with ClearHouse, they can also use Proton very easily. All the familiar functions there, and it's easy to use, and the performance is also there in Proton.
Nice. So I feel like I'm already coming up with some of my favorite features just from hearing this. Do you have any particular features that you're like, oh man, this is like my favorite. I could just talk about this for ages. It's really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool features in Proton. For example, I guess this might be not really for streaming 101. You may know we have a fixed window, sliding window, session window. And for example, I guess it was like the first year when we started company and we get very good design partners, and they are building a fleet management system. So all the truck on the road, they have the sensor regarding the tire pressure, the speed, all those other things. And they want to measure whether my driver driving this too long, right? So we're always coming from a business problem to solve. Not have to be, hey, this is a streaming, this is not, or this is whatever function. They always have a problem to solve. And for example, in that case, want to measure, hey, whether the driver keep driving this car for more than 4 hours. Then it sounds easy to solve, but if you think deeper, that is, hey, if the driver stop on this block of the street for 2 minutes for waiting for a traffic light, or they just, for some reason, it's a traffic jam. So how to handle that, right? So we come up with a solution that is, hey, if the car is keep on moving, which is we do more like downsampling every 1 minute to get the minimal speed. If the minimal speed is 0, meaning there's no move in that 1 minute, then you also need to check if that car stop for only 2 minutes, it's not really considered as a rest because maybe he's waiting for the traffic light or stuck in a traffic jam. You have to set an extra condition that if this is over 3 minutes, it can be a rest, but even if it can be a short rest, like maybe we can set the threshold to be 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Then in the end, we have very interesting logic over there, and we can express everything using CQ. So compared to their previous function, which is they have a bunch of Java program to keep reading the data and transform in one way or the other and come a result. In our case, we just write everything in a SQL together with just a session window with different parameters, and we can fire events into their IAM system so that their security officer can notify the user, maybe give a call. Yeah, no more driving, please take a rest. Otherwise, it can be dangerous for both sides. The driver in a risk, or even sometimes in certain region, the police officer will check all the status. If you driving too long, you might get a ticket. It's from very business-oriented questions, then we got a lot of state management. But in the end, we can translate to those parameters in the streaming SQL, and we can connect them together to solve the
Oh, that's
issue.
super interesting. And as you mentioned regional. So I know you mentioned that a lot of this is customizable. So it sounds like you can change the threshold for, we're stopping at 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Are there other customizable components that you can specify per region, knowing what the rules are there? Or is that something that the user would be defining themselves?
Yeah, so we do think using CQ as the rule engine is much easier compared to maintain a bunch of customized code, right? You have to read the source code and compile it to test it. In our case, especially in the Timeplus UI, you have a list of rules or materials view as the long-running job. You can easily modify or add some comments to it. And we do support stuff like geofencing. So for example, different region might have different insurance policy, right? So if a certain truck leave certain region without notice, they might not be covered in that state or region. So all those things can be well defined in a separate lookup table or stream, and we can dynamically change it no matter if we call slow change data or fixed static data or even frequently change data. So all those things can be leveraged, can be connected together using join. And we try to make the CQ as expressive as possible, but in some cases, there's some logic is how to express in CQ. And you may be familiar with the concept called CEP, which is complex event processing, which is really a headache, but it's a true problem to solve.
Yeah.
So we get some cases to work with a few data partner customers. So we end up with UDF, which is a user-defined function or user-defined execution function. And we leverage Google V8 as the sandbox.
Cool.
And you can write a JavaScript code to whatever way, even leverage some libraries. So in that way, you can marry the SQL side together with the JavaScript side, and you can have a high performance, low latency system to detect all the C patterns. But the overall framework is still using us as a Proton streaming SQL.
Oh, very cool. So with this use case, I'm assuming this is like a customer of yours that they would want a lot of security. They're probably going to be using the Timeplus platform or cloud. Are these features that are also now available on Proton itself, like the open source, or is this something that has been built specifically for that paying customer?
Yeah, so Proton is our SQL engine. So all the SQL functions, I don't think there's any SQL function only available in Timeplus, not in Proton. It's not the case. So the engine is engine, right? So everything is there,
Awesome.
including the sandbox V8 execution model for the user-defined function. I think for the Timeplus side, we really provide extra support. We have the SOC 2 things, and we have extra UI. Even we leverage other tools. For example, Proton really focusing on real-time data, for example, Pulsar or Kafka. But there's a lot of other data sources which we can technically implement in Proton using C++, but the effort will not be so small. So we don't want to build everything by ourselves. So we leverage tools like Benzos, which is a Golang-based, more like software sync framework. They support almost different software syncs. So whatever almost common things you can always get from Benzos, and we run Benzos as part of our microservice in the cloud. But Proton is really focusing on the simplicity. So there's no microservice at all. There's only one Docker image or only one single binary. But the difference is not too huge. It's really the commercial side is more about security, extra management, capability. But all the key features is in the Proton side.
Nice. You mentioned scalability. Do you want to tell me a little bit about how that's different for the platform?
Yeah, scalability is the key. On one hand, we have both the process storage and the processing. So that makes things a little bit different. For example, I know in the case of Apache Flink, historical, it's just computing engine, not to the storage side. I know there's a new project like Apache Flink to try to add storage to it, but it's more like a different project. So this system like Apache Flink, because they're really focusing on the computation side, the raw data is not under control. They have to have a lot of state management. For example, watermark, we have to add the barriers, stuff like that. I'm not going into too detail. But because Proton designed a way that is, we can process the live data, but also all the data is persistent in our side. And we are making sure every single stream, every single event timestamp column. So we can do things much easier, and we can handle the case that is, if one node is down, other node can read the data and without all the states. And also because we implement in a way that is really focusing on performance. So in general, we don't really need so many different nodes. Some of our customers, they either using single node or like 3 node, 7 node, not a lot of nodes. I know Flink and maybe Spark, they might have thousands of nodes for large workload. We really admire that kind of large scale development. But in our cases, because we can run from very small box like one CPU, 2 GB memory,
Wow.
to bigger ones, but you don't really have to start like hundreds of thousands of nodes. Also, we put an effort on the cluster side because, for example, you may know Raft, and we implement something by ourselves without leveraging the native or the community version of a ClearHouse cluster. Because if you set up a ClearHouse cluster by yourself, it's not easy. There's a lot of manual effort editing on the configuration file, on the other stuff. So for our case, we actually implement our own multi-raft based cluster to handle those leader elections, all those things. But again, as a company, we really excited to work with the customers. Some customers really enjoyed ETL use of Proton. Some customers really enjoy that low latency. It's just the beginning of I'm sure we might get the chance, we see big cluster, but at this point, we still focus a lot on this ETL use, because I would say there are more and more developers in the space. They hear about streaming, but they're always frustrated or afraid that there's just too many things to learn. So I guess one of the key goals for us is to work with all the partners, together with all the players in the space, to make this understanding as turn to a space that is streaming secure. Actually, it's easy to learn, easy to use, and you can get started easily. Batch is great, but definitely you need to go to the next chapter, which is unified, or at least to get hands dirty on the streaming side, and Proton can be part of it.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, I love making streaming easier because I think streaming is so great. I think it's where the future's going. But yeah, the learning curve for a lot of technologies can be pretty steep. So it's really reassuring to hear that companies like yours are really looking out for that and keeping in mind that as part of the developer experience. So I also wanted to ask, we already talked about what your favorite features are. Are there any really weird features or weird edge cases or something that's really impressive? Like maybe someone contributed something to Proton from your open source community and you're like, whoa, that's really novel. I would never have thought of that, like anything kind of like that.
Yeah, I think there's many cases. When I work in the IBM, EMC, or Sprung, I'm always in this engineering or engineering manager kind of role. So I do have some chance to talk to customers, but in this co-founder position, especially it's such a new tool, and the people, sometimes they don't really have any legacy problem. They really want to solve the new problem using the new tool. So I get a chance to talk to some interesting customers on each of the cases. So for example, recently we talked to a few customers. They are doing kind of promotion. Try to, for example, if I set up a new system or new game, I want to invite players to try these new features or purchase certain digital assets. And if they new to this, I guess you know all the theory that is, there's some behavior patterns you can try to motivate to keep the new user excited, right? And so keep the engagement high. But at the very beginning, I didn't realize, hey, all those theories can be mapped to the semantics of stream processing. Like, so for example, in the past, we use this time window as a fixed window, say every 1 minute, every 1 second, we will generate some event aggregation for you, right? And you may know there's something related to watermark, whether you can handle late event or not. So those are always there on some documentation of our paper, but we always hesitate whether we should provide something like per event aggregation or show the result even the window is not closed. So we know this might be happening, but we didn't get a concrete case. But when I talked to a few customers in that space, they mentioned that, for example, if the user deposited certain amount into the account, for example, I deposited $10 today, I deposited $20 tomorrow, and or even in the same hours, then you want to fire certain alerts when the user accumulated puts a certain money. For example, once the virtual money is over, say, 100. So between 99 to 100, you should fire alerts. But you should not fire the other alerts 110 to 120. So they needed to fire the alerts as soon as possible. Imagine when you deposit one more money into the system and within the next second, the system shows some animation. Hey, thank you for being our loyal customer, and here's a $5 as a coupon. If that happens in the same second, you will have the higher chance to take that coupon and buy more, right? So that's actually require a lot of state management and low latency. Everything actually can be combined and it can be expressed using streaming circuit, which is nice. I was like, wow, I know this is happening, but I didn't realize it's just so close to our products.
Yeah, that's awesome. And is that someone from the open source community that was using that, or is that a customer that had that
Yes,
use case?
so that's on our open source side. So that's also that's part of the reason why we make our core engine open source, because we spend so much time on our multi-talent cloud. We have a very nice UI, pass all the SOC tools things, but still we feel, especially you are on the data infrastructure space, it's very difficult not to offer open source version, right? Unless you are a company like Snowflake, but there's only one Snowflake. So when I'm doing all those meetup conference, I always get the question, oh, that sounds great, but can I try this now on my laptop? So it's really pattern that is people want to try locally or try in their own data center without using the cloud. So the reason why we open source in September last year is okay, we are very confident, even we share whatever code in our current state to the cloud, to the GitHub, we are confident we can build more innovation with our friends, with our connection with customers. So we are not worried about people take that code or host it, because we are the original creator, and we have a cloud version to make the measurement much easier. So almost everything is in the open source side. Again, if you check our GitHub repository, it's still a relatively new project. So that's also part of the reason why I really hope that I can talk to many engineers or developers that, hey, Flink is great, QQDB is great, but check out if you don't want to tune such a JVM or you don't want to manage such a big cluster. If you just want to move data from A to B with some processing, if you really want to implement some low latency use cases, you can track Proton as an alternative.
Nice. And I love that, especially because, and I keep going back to this because I just love it so much, but your focus on the developer, the ease of developer experience goes such a long way. And I think making this open source, being able to leverage that and saying, we have all these features, come join us, leveraging that community for yourself, but also saying, we're giving back to the community by making this as easy as possible, by making this really easy to adopt. I think that's really exciting. It seems like Proton has such a huge potential in that way to get even more people involved, which is really neat.
Yeah, I guess it's more like to grow the pie together, right? There's some player in this space. There's some competition, to be honest, but we don't have to put so much effort to say, hey, you have the feature, I need the similar feature. The idea that is, if we can grow the pie together, have more engineer to handle their real-time data, and even for some company in the early stage don't have a lot of engineers, they can easily build some real-time analytics. So that's our future. We want the pie getting bigger and bigger. And the ease of use certainly is one of the key to get more people on board.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that actually brings me to one of my closing questions, which is, so if I'm a developer and I'm saying, okay, this is awesome, I just watched this cool podcast with these really awesome people, and now I want to get involved in Proton, do you have, I know you said the documentation, it's pretty simple, just download it and go, especially, if people are familiar with SQL, particularly if they're familiar with stream processing concepts. Are there any particular events or like a community Slack or anything that you'd recommend people getting involved in if they want to get help or if they want to help mentor other people or just get connected with that community?
Yeah, of course. We're really looking forward to get more feedback and the contributors. So I think I put the Slack link in our README together with other links like such as YouTube channels and Twitter or other things. And I also started to engage people on the other communities such as Hack News and Reddit.
Nice.
People might prefer using different tools. I fully get it. And I think the Slack channel will be the best way to ask some questions, do some follow-up, and you can chat with other community users. And we also have a few tickets is ready to be contributed by external team. For example, we actually have a ticket for Iceberg. We have a ticket for Pulsar. We have a ticket for getting more example. So all those tickets available in the GitHub, and we used our public GitHub repo as our base, right? So every day you might see some discussions, some draft PRs. So everything is there. So we actually, the entire team developed transparently using the GitHub version. So you can monitor what is coming, what is in the roadmap,
Nice.
and if you can contribute to things like, for example, today we do have a nice integration with Kafka, and Pulsar has all the C++ SDKs available, but we haven't get a chance to work on that. It's available in our cloud using, as I mentioned, Benthos as a microservice. But we really want to enable Proton to connect to Pulsar without any other component. So that's one ticket. Maybe I would join the user can try that. And also, Iceberg is a really big thing that is people want to using a cheaper storage for historical data. And if we can connect that, that would be great. People mention fancy tools like Patch Arrow or Arrow Flash Secures. So we also made that as a ticket for people to open. And we even work with some other platform to have a kind of bounty system. You can get a certain amount of money as a reward if you contribute to certain features or give out feedback.
Oh,
So
cool.
all in all, that is we really want to work together with the community, and we think this tool deserves more users to try it, and we have to work with partner together to have more integration and implement more use cases.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the bounties, is that something that people could find like on GitHub or on your README or?
Yes, yeah, it's on the issue list. I think there's a bounty
Nice.
ticket. So again, I know many people on the open source side, they don't really care too much about the money. So that's just a token of our appreciation.
Yeah.
But we also willing to send the t-shirts, hoodies, and there's always a budget limitation, but we try to join as many conferences as possible. For example, will be Kafka Summit in London, and we also join, for example, Stream Native conference a few times.
Right.
So happy to meet you in person or join our Slack discussion.
Awesome. Yeah, I love being able to see you all at all the events too. This has been so much fun.
Thanks so much. I'm so glad to join this new podcast, and Stream Native has been very friendly. And I personally use Pod a lot in the past, so cannot be more happy to join your podcast and meet the more passionate Stream developers or users in the space.
It was really, really awesome getting to hear more about Timeplus and Proton, and I'm really excited to join the Slack as well and get to see more about this community.